most people know a control freak, right? I mean, somebody, friend, family, somebody, or maybe had an experience with it. But this is going to be, probably a control freak a little bit different. Hopefully, you've not run into this type of person. But let's find out a little bit more about what's happening here with the IMDb plot to start. A motivational speaker is tormented by an unrelenting itch on the back of her head. All right. Well, that's not really going to tell us how much of a control freak she is, but let's see. This is a recently released film on Hulu. Got to share the press release for this at Promote Horror, so finally got a chance to catch up and watch it. Interestingly enough, I really liked the poster for it. I kind of, obviously the plot there doesn't say much. I kind of gathered a little bit more from, the press release I put out. Thought it was going to be a little bit different, especially when you look at the poster. At least different in theme or where it was going than where it ended up. So that was a little bit of surprise. But I'll get a little bit into that here in a second. But again, this is a new one on Hulu. So I'll try to keep it spoiler free. There is, a little bit of twisting and turning here. So I'll try to save that for you guys who have not seen it yet. Yeah, so obviously we kind of have a start here, get introduced to this woman here. She's a motivational speaker. You're going to see flashes of her giving a very, what seems to be a very important speech at times. And I think, at first maybe I didn't gather into it, but I think, as you go through the film and as they kind of show you clips of this, this is really a speech that is kind of more about her experience, what you see in the whole movie. So, what might seem unimportant, is kind of an important thing. And obviously, if you sum that up at the end, you'd have better thoughts on everything that's going on. But yeah, curiously enough, we've talked, I guess it's a thing, people said, you get an itch in your head and whatever, and maybe you're thinking about something and so forth. And, at first with her, maybe you think it's not a big deal. She kind of, just itch here and there, back and forth. But obviously, as the movie goes, it's going to become a bigger issue. She's, is it a stress itch? Is it a nervous itch, anxious? She's got a lot of things going on in her life. She's got, I don't know, I think it was her, I don't know if he was her fiance or she's married or whatever, but he's around, things going on there. Obviously, she's a speaker. She's getting, ready for another speech. So things going on in her life too, where you think that maybe those things are what's making her have this itch. And, as the film kind of goes on, the guy, he's going to become more and more concerned about her, the itch. She starts acting a little more weird. Obviously, you see her, as the audience, you see her start seeing some weird things, doing some weird things. Is she dreaming, hallucinating? Are these things really happening? Those are for her to figure out, for you to figure out. You find out a little bit about her relationship with her father and obviously where she comes from, a little bit of her family history and so forth. That's going to play a little bit of a role in what overall happens here. I think, that introduction to her father, seems like a minor thing, but it becomes very important later on. Obviously, so as the movie goes on, she's going to get this itch more and more. It's going to, start off being, a little bit, whatever, just an itch, but then progressively become more creepier and so forth. I don't know that I want to say, a whole lot, because I want you guys to kind of, see what's going on there. But like I said, it will become creepier as it is. And as it goes, you'll see that the itch is something else, and something else that's creating this itch and bothering her, and trying, let's just say, trying to come out from her, or trying to, maybe, as she tries to control every situation she's in, maybe this thing that's in her and causing the itch and so forth, is trying to gain control itself, as this goes. So, just interestingly enough, looking down here at IMDb, it says body horror, monster horror, supernatural. It checks all those boxes. Like I said, you get a little body horror. You will have some things happening with her head, as she itches, and then later on a few things. Monster horror, supernatural, that may give you a little hint about the direction we're going. But, I will say, kind of watching this one, as it kind of went, I would say that I wasn't getting totally invested in it. Like, I was kind of wondering, after a while, it kind of seemed like maybe some of the same things were happening, or just kind of the same thing, or, she's, kind of losing it. She's all nuts. There's, she keeps scratching her head. They show it. Obviously, they show you some things, maybe some things that you've already seen, not really going, hugely out of the box. So, as I'm kind of watching it, how is this movie really holding me in here? What is going on here? Is making me happy that I'm watching this. And, I really, even to the point where I wasn't even sure I wanted to do a review of this or not, because I'm like, what is, going on here? Maybe I'm just not going to. But, I think this is a movie, at least to me, that at least the ending kind of helped save it, at least in my eyes, that finally, maybe to me it was just too much of a slow, I'm not going to say it's a slow build movie or that, but at least to me, maybe it was in some ways, or so forth. But I think, finally at the end, when you see what it is, and finally when she basically has to face it and fight it, and try to put an end to it, I think then it kind of gives you something, or at least it gave me something. It gave me, a glimpse of hope. It gave me something that I was kind of interested in seeing. Kind of a little bit of a crazy, wild ending. A little bit not expecting it, and what happens at the end. A touch wild. So I think that's pretty much the main reason I'm even, here saying anything. Maybe for those who have already seen it, maybe you had a similar experience, like, not really into it, and then maybe you liked the end, or maybe you just weren't into it all the way. But, at least for me, it gave me something at the end that I was at least pleased with. I don't want to go into too much details. I don't want to spoil all those parts for you, especially since it's the end of the movie. But like I said, she will basically, finally face whatever it is that she has to face to get rid of it. Like I said, she's a little bit of a control freak. It wants to be in control. You're going to find that battle. Like I said, there's other elements going on there. But really comes to a head and gives you if the pace kind of picks up, everything kind of picks up there at the end, and kind of maybe also, it kind of didn't end the way that I kind of expected it to do. Which is maybe, an inkling to, maybe another reason why I felt like, I should at least say something about the film. So, we'll see what kind of experience you guys have when you watch the film, if you just don't like it overall, or if you kind of like the ending, or just, I could see it now, and oh, this movie, I hate it altogether. Why are you even talking about it? I could see that as well. It's really hard to talk about without, mentioning some of the specifics in the end. But, once you guys see it, and, you'll kind of know what I'm talking about, and so forth. And like I said, one of the thoughts is, maybe some of the ending words of the film, and so forth, when, like I said, everything kind of comes together, and through the film you see her giving this glimpses of her giving this really important speech, and while you may not be totally interested in everything that happens before, once she kind of concludes that speech, with everything that happens, it kind of gives it a little bit meaning and whatever. So at least, I guess in a way you see the film and you don't see it as like, oh man, what a waste, that was. The speech meant nothing. This means nothing. But I mean, you may still feel that way, but at least you can see what they were attempting to go out. And I think, in a weird way, maybe the speech might affect, some people out there and so forth who maybe need a little bit of motivation in a weird way from a weird story, and obviously untrue story, weird story, and so forth. But yeah, so maybe at the end of the day, it will do some good to some people that watch it in a weird way. But with that, I guess at the end of the day, I'm just gonna give it 2 pools of blood out of 5. Again, not maybe hugely interested in 2/3 of the movie, but definitely liked the ending and liked how it kind of came to an end, and a little bit of the unexpected that happened, and saw a little bit of hope in the movie once it ended. But yeah, that's going to be a two pools of blood out of 5 for this one, and again, this one is on Hulu if you're interested in seeing it. And I believe, if I remember, yeah, we did have as I said, a press release. So if I do remember, I will try to include that link to that down below as well. So if you want more information about the film, to decide whether to see it or not, you can find that there as well. So with that, horrorgory-reviews.blogspot.com is where you can find all my reviews written in video, certainly video reviews for a while now. So you can like and subscribe and do everything else that everybody wants to do here on YouTube. But if not, no worries, it is okay. I thank you for your time regardless. Twitter, Facebook information down below as well. Feel free to join me there, talk about this movie, other movies, horror, something you want me to review, and definitely in the comment section, if you kind of had the same thoughts or you really enjoyed the film, feel free to share there as well. And with that, I will catch you on the next review, horror fans.